Rangers Journal now.
Well, good afternoon, Bears. This is the Rangers Journal post-match of today's game against St Mirren, which Rangers have fallen to an abject, and abject really is the word, loss 2-0 in this game. I had a whole introduction planned, and thanks for introducing you, Billy, but there was going to be a wee joke in there and everything, but frankly, after watching that dismal performance, joking is the last thing I'm in the mood for, so I'm just going to welcome you to this, what could well be a bit of a week in the light of that match, Billy, but welcome on the show, and thanks for joining me today.
No, thank you, Doug, and I don't know if you've ever had anyone resign in their debut, but it's marginally tempting today.
Indeed, a sad one for you to make your debut on, but we're very glad to have you here. I'm sure everyone in the comments will welcome you onto the show. And the guys, if you've got any questions for Billy as a new guy on the show, then do ask any questions you have. Frankly, I'd happily talk about anything but the game. So, but unfortunately, we do have to talk about it, so we will. Welcome everybody who is coming in there on the chat. It's nice to see everyone still coming in. Kyle 1872 there, I think, with a sentiment that will be common throughout the show today. Billy, if first of all, before we go into sort of any specifics, just sort of your general feelings sort of post-match.
I mean, I was a wee bit worried that we might be heading for something like this, because you've got. I'm not sure that with the squad Clement's got, any managers challenging for the league. Same token, I was looking at the league table and we're like equidistant between first and third. You start to think, well, we're out of the cup and there's Europe, and you've got players on loan, you've got players there that are youth players like Nsiala, who with the best will in the world is hardly going to carry the team. And you do start to think, are you going to see a drop off? Because they haven't got the fear of losing third place to going into third place. They haven't got the carrot. Still, I think we were talking beforehand, and like the opportunity to get it back to 10 points and maybe get to the next Old Firm game with an opportunity to take it into single points. This is one of the sort of benchmarks people were talking about, in terms of giving Big Phil benefit of the doubt for the rest of the season. And I have been a big defender of Clement, but it's so disappointing to have another one of these. All right, we could get 3 points back on that lot and then just make a howling backside of it. I'm not sure how much I was told that you're not supposed to swear on this, so I'm not sure if which nomenclature for the backside I should use, but I'll say howling backside. So it was really disappointing just from that get 3 points back, and the manner of it as well. They kicked off, and I was laughing at the fact that they played it back to their keeper, and I was thinking, football from the back, European style, and of course they house it straight up the pitch, and I'm kind of laughing and thinking Scottish football is pretty much how they got their goals. Sorry for jumping ahead.
No, that's absolutely fine. You made some good points there. I mean, we were just talking prior to going live there about the fact that, really, given where we are in second, we're not close enough to be challenging for first. We're far enough ahead to not really be concerned about third. And so we had kind of 10 plus dead rubbers. But then after results earlier in the day, this game ceased to be a dead rubber because it became a game where the team could show that they've got a bit of fight still in them. They could show a bit of character. They could close the gap, and just give that little tiny bit of hope. Because, like you say, you win that match today. You've still got 2 Old Firms to go, and then I think it would be 4 points. I think we would be if we were to win those. So it just gives you that little something, and makes the season not completely gone already by February. But as I say, the team at no point today, I think maybe the first 5 minutes, because one of the things I was going to say in the intro for this game was, you could clip what I'm about to say in the next 30 seconds and probably play it at the start of every post-match, because it feels like it's been every game up till now. Whereas we looked bright for 5 minutes, looked like we might be showing a little something, and then slowly over as the game went on, the passing went awry, it became slack. they just didn't have any creativity. Mistakes were being made, losing the ball. Like you say, we were losing second balls, and it just became the same game we've watched. Feels like game on game this season.
Well, I mean, it does in the overall picture. I was taking notes, trying to be sort of diligent new podder, taking notes, and thinking, oh, that'll be a talking point. Then, oh, that'll be a talking point. And then it's like, no, us getting gubbed is going to be a talking point. One of the things you're talking about, the first 5 minutes were okay. And then I started making notes, and it was like 6 minutes, Butland fluffs collecting the ball. Like 7 minutes, Butland, he punches when he looked like he could have caught. And I actually started thinking, is he wearing mittens instead of goalkeeping gloves? And then the 8th minute, he kicks it straight to a St Mirren player, makes a save, and then apparently makes another save, although I thought that the St Mirren player could have done better with it. So I was thinking, like, are we going to be talking about Butland again? Because like he looked like far from impressive. And then I thought later in the game we might be talking about Clancy, who, I mean, I know Scottish football's a joke in many ways, but when you're actually looking at a match and you sort of deflate when you see who the official's going to be, I think that says something. I won't jump into my Clancy rant just now, but just to say that, yeah, after that first 5 minutes, I'm not pinning it all in Butland, that once you start getting a wee bit edgy, it ripples through the team. And we did that thing. I understand trying to play out from the back, but we did that thing where we just seemed to keep playing out in ever decreasing angles to the point where you knew someone's going to like fluff their lines here. And yet we did it, and it was like the third thing in 3 minutes. And if you're St Mirren, you're thinking, they're a bit edgy today, we're going to get at them, and thus it proved.
That it did. So I've put a poll in the chat there, guys. I'm pretty sure I know how it'll turn out, but put a poll in the chat there just to ask, should Clement be sacked tonight after that performance? So do weigh in with your opinions there, as well as obviously all of your comments as well. Will said from Toronto, that sounds nice. I'd like to be somewhere anywhere but here just now. So that sounds a nice place to be. So let's start at the beginning then. So the lineup was announced obviously just before the game, as always. We started with Butland in goal, Tavernier, Proper, Nsiala, and Shefty at the back. Proper coming in for Suter due to him having picked up an injury. Diamandi, Raskin is the centre two, and then you've got your Cherney, Hadji, and Eggleman across the attacking three, and Dessers up front. Was there any surprises for you there, Billy, or anything? You weren't expecting?
Not massively. Like Dessers coming in, people had been predicting that, so no massive surprises. It did concern me a wee bit. I was talking to my brother about this the last couple of weeks. Nsiala looks like he's developing really well, but I yet to see evidence that he's a defender. Like, he looks great strolling forward and pinging passes and kind of, like playing wee skillful bits between the lines, but there are a couple of times balls have been whipped into the box, even in the Queen's Park game, where I'm going, where is he? And that was genuinely a concern going into the game, because if you're Stephen Robinson, you're looking at that and you're going, where's the weak link there? And Proper's not great with physical challenges, but Nsiala was a youth team player that, best will in the world. At the start of the season, he wasn't even looking great in our youth team. Credit to him and the management team for getting him to a stage where he looks like he's becoming a player, but that's who you'd be targeting. Like, our centre of defence just looked like it was going to be the weak spot, and it's kind of sad to see that all you really had to do was sort of like keep lumping it into that area, and mayhem ensued.
Absolutely. I think for me, with the starting lineup, it's become so predictable. There's very little that ever changes. That's a huge surprise. He sort of flips back and forth between having the two strikers on the pitch or not. But other than that, he just seems devoid of ideas for a team that really needs some creative ideas to kind of spark a bit of life into them.
I mean, that's true. I guess the flip side of that is, who's he going to bring in? Because Bayrami, I thought when we first signed him, he actually looked pretty decent, and he's had some big games in Europe and against Celtic, but league games, I can see why he's on the bench. McCausland, I'm a wee bit disappointed he hasn't had more of a run out, because he looked like he's improved. He's improved his shooting, especially in his left foot. You think he could bring something to it, but I mean, at the end of the day, Clement knows that basically he's kind of hanging on to his job by his fingernails. So presumably, based on what he's seeing in training, he's putting out the best team he thinks he's got available. Tom Lawrence came in the last game, people weren't happy about that. When he came on, you kind of could see why he's on the bench again, because he looked rusty. He was giving away possession under no pressure. So I know what you're saying, and this goes to a wider issue for me, which is I think Clement did a really good job to get us in a title chase last season, and then the same players that have kind of fallen apart before fell apart again. So I wouldn't pin that on him. The rebuild, though, I think left us significantly weaker when you look at what we brought in. So I'm looking at that and going is Pep Guardiola getting much more out of the players he's got? Is he going to come up with some? Clement is a guy who clearly understands tactics. He can get results in Europe, but that's in Europe where teams will come at you. In Scotland, with this sort of double low block, where it is difficult to break down unless you've got a well-oiled and highly resourced team, and we don't. We've got weaknesses all over the pitch. So I share the frustration. I'd be lying if I said I know what the answer is. Bring McCausland on and stick him in, or Bayrami in a certain position, because none of them have shown consistency, or that it's not like we've got someone like a Sima last season where you go, right, he's good for 20 goals and he'll drive you up the pitch, and he's got everything. Now we've got a Sherny who does a wee bit of what he did, and we've got Igman who he looks a player, but he's blowing a wee bit hot and cold at the moment. So I kind of I know I'll probably get pelters for this, but I don't mind giving the manager grief, but when I'm struggling to think what the answer would be, then you have a bit of sympathy for him, because he's only got X amount of tools in the toolbox. Insert your own joke here.
I want to say a big thank you to James there, who's putting a paid comment. So huge thank you for that, James. It really little helps the channel. James is saying there we don't have leadership in the teams. Obviously, you've obviously got Tavernier as captain, but in terms of the wider team as well, we've obviously had lots of discussions, I think, over the last year or so, particularly with the potential last summer that Tavernier may have left. We've talked a lot about the leadership team on the channel. In terms of the players that are there currently, obviously Butland was a big favourite to be captain, potentially, and seemingly was in line to do so. Although people have kind of gone on, seem to have gone off that idea a little. Other players that have been mentioned was Sterling as well, as apparently one of the part of the leadership team there as well. What are your thoughts on sort of the leadership on the team in general, and how that's perhaps failing us right now?
I mean, I think Clement recognised in the summer that we needed, before anyone jumps on this, I'm not saying John Lundstrom was a modern version of Souness or anything like that. He would play like that sort of 10% of the time. He would play mediocre half the time and be quite dull half the time. But he took responsibility. He was a player who would take the ball and kind of lumber about the pitch and sort of do his thing. And I think Clement clearly, he recognised that either holding on to Lundstrom as a backup or getting someone else in that role, the way Aberdeen got, I don't know if the player's Christensen, but they got an experienced central midfielder who could kind of control a game. And Clement tried. I think he tried to get a guy from Spain, a guy from Italy who would do that sort of role, experienced, someone who could control the pace of a game, take the pressure off the youngsters around him, and show that leadership. And whether or not he was let down by the board, or whether or not it's just bad luck, he didn't get that. So you've seen players like Raskin coming in; they're building up. Raskin's taking responsibility, but you don't look at that team and think, right, who's going to grab like a teammate by the scruff of the neck and go FFS. And that has been a bugbear of mine for a number of years. There's nothing more I hate than seeing one of our players getting absolutely wiped out and our team sort of like strolling round about him instead of like getting outraged and into the faces of the opposition. And I don't know if that's like just because maybe we lack a bit of identity, but there's definitely, I mean, Butland talks a good game, and he's good with the media and everything. I'm never a big fan of having a goalkeeper as your captain. Tavernier's more lead by example, but you wouldn't say, like it or not, when you have a player like a Scotty Arfield or even when that lot had like Scott Brown or something, it's like I'm not sure we've got a player that the opposition love to hate. The way they used to do with Morelos, it was like almost like they'd be slavering when Morelos was on the pitch and they'd be wanting him to get into trouble. I'm not sure the opposition players look at our team, or the opposition fans rather look at our team and go, there's the pantomime villain, because I think a lot of our players are just too like modern technical career players who don't have that wee bit extra, and they might be happy to be at Rangers, but I don't get a sense with a lot of them that they would risk breaking an ankle in a 50-50. I'm not saying everyone should all the time, but I just don't see that in this team. But I think Clement knows that, and I think he tried to identify it in the summer, to be fair.
Yeah. We've got Charles here with another paid comment. Thank you very much, Charles, for that. He says, no excuses. They're on sweetie budgets at St Mirren, etc. Not got a clue. Total diarrhea. Get him gone now. I think there's a valid point in there as well. You touched on, you could potentially have some sympathy for Clement in terms of lack of options, still not having a squad that's good enough. But ultimately, he still has a squad that's assembled at considerable cost above that of anyone else in the league, bar Celtic. And so, we should still be looking to beat teams by St Mirren, or at least not. If he's going to lose a game, it should be because the other team have really outdone us, or we've just had a horrendous bit of luck or something like that. It shouldn't be because we've been so poor.
I mean, what I would say there is, to me, today was more of a 2-2 game than a 2-0 game, just based on sort of like possession and chances. I know it's, this isn't popular. I've followed teams out with football who've done sort of like cyclical rebuilds because they're not big teams. This is a wee bit what it looks like. People might not like to hear it, but yes, we shouldn't be losing to St Mirren today. But you could make an argument and say, given the resources we've got versus given the resources that lot have got, we are sitting roughly where the resources sort of indicate, they're like double figures ahead of us. We're double figures ahead of the next team in sort of no man's land. And I'm not happy about that. I'm not justifying or defending it. But by the same token, that we shouldn't be losing to St Mirren, but you look at that defence today, and if you're you wouldn't need to be an opposition manager with an awful lot of experience to go, right, get at them, because one of them's effectively a kid and the other one struggles with the physical side of the game. Do you think Philippe Clement's playing those two in central defence? If he has John Souttar fit, that's another issue. But actually a decent alternative, like someone who would have been a replacement for Golson, like that type of player. So I know it's not popular, but if you look at like our resources versus like Celtic's resources versus the rest of the league's resources, kind of we're sitting where we might expect to be. I'm not saying that's acceptable before anyone jumps in that. I'm just saying, like, if you take a step back, and again, yep, you look at Clement losing today, and that's bad. But if you look at across the average points across the season, is going to see us end up stuck in second, like with distance on either side. So I'm sure Big Phil would make that argument. And again, just to be clear, I've been a big defender of Clement because I think he was shafted by the board and recruitment. I think he was told he would get more than he was going to get. And I think he's been given resources that any manager would struggle to mount a title challenge with. I also recognise that where he's at just now, it's going to be difficult, increasingly difficult for him to hold on to his position. Yes, we've got Europe, and that people can say so what, but he has done well in Europe. I do feel confident that we have a chance in Europe with Big Phil at the helm. And the other thing is, it's all very well saying get rid of him. You need to know that what we're going to bring in as an interim or an alternative is going to be better, because he's going to get a second in the league. As dull and drudgy as it is watching this, he's going to get a second in the league. He's going to give us a chance of getting to a quarter-final in Europe. And if you're not going to bring in a long-term manager, because like too many, like Beale and Clement and others have kind of like shafted themselves by taking the job mid-season. So you're going to want someone to come in really in the close season. So you're going to bring in an interim manager. Are they going to get an uptick in the league? Well, like, what's the evidence for that? And then are they going to be able to organise in Europe the way Clement's done? Need a decent argument for that. So I know it's tempting to just want them out now, but my question would be, like, what's the evidence that you're going to get something better? And what I hear in a lot of kind of chat rooms is people going, well, I don't know what the alternative would be, but that's not my job. And I was like, well, we've all got an opinion in football. If we're struggling to come up with a decent alternative to Clement just now, it's because there isn't an obvious one. So I'm not happy with today, and I'm not happy with watching us ship points when we could have closed the gap in Celtic. But I'm struggling to think who's going to come in now and do a better job between now and the close season, when presumably, like, the 49ers group have someone maybe lined up to take over. I'm sure I'm not looking at the comments, but I'm just waiting.
So would you say, obviously without necessarily having to pinpoint an individual, I mean, I'm personally of the opinion that there's more to get out of the players that is currently being brought out of them. I feel like
who do you think should be given? No, I'm not challenging. I'm just going because who do you think should be playing better?
Well, I think there's we're not getting the best out of Diamonde. In my opinion, we're not getting the best out of KFD. Danilo, though, that is partly down to his injuries in terms of lack of. But I don't think he gets the best out of him when he's played in that central. In fact, that's just that number 10 position in general. I don't think seems to work for what Clement wants to happen. Now, I don't know if it's probably primarily is not having the right player to play there, but my problem that I find that has become increasingly apparent is that Clement seems either unable or unwilling to change his system to fit the players that he has, and just he just keeps kind of going around these kind of similar little houses of moving the players around a little bit, because you tend to find that whoever is in the number 10, the game passes them by regardless of who it is, unless they really inject themselves into it. Which has happened on occasional games, but I think it's been more down to the player. And I think you see the players get themselves up for the big games, which is in part, I think, why we've played better in Europe, although there's a number of reasons for that. In part, why we play better in some of the more exciting games. But they're clearly not getting themselves motivated for the rest of the matches. And so, again, for me, that's where the manager makes their money, because the manager's the one that drives the standard and make sure that the players are up for every game and in the right mentality and set up for every game. And Clement doesn't seem to be able to do that, because we keep starting games slowly and then reacting. Today we didn't really react at all. It just kind of carried on. But we did have that pattern where we would have a really slow first half, lose a goal, and then second half we'd be much better. And that, to me, is, it's easy to bring a team in, go through them, and then get a reaction out of them when they're doing something wrong. But you should be getting them in the right place and the right mindset from the beginning of the game. And he just seems incapable of doing that. And I just feel like whoever it may be, as I say, I'm not, like you say, it's not easy to point out names or make guarantees. But I feel like there's more to get from some of those players, partly because some of those players have shown more in the past. And there's one or two, there was a comment in our group chat today where someone said the players have down tools. And I can see why people would see that. But there's still one or two that I think are trying. Hadji, I thought, put in a shift in what looked like he was trying. I still think Cherney looks like he's putting in an effort. Raskin usually looks up for games. So I still think there are players that are trying and putting the effort in, but we just seem like they're just going through the motions tactically. We're doing the same things over and over again, not really getting any results, and coming up against the same issues because other managers are going, oh, if I play like this, I'll make this game difficult for Rangers, and I can get something out of the game. And that's what's happening. And the more you go into the season with that happening, the more confidence the other teams get, as over time it proves to work.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, and I think Ross Clark makes a good point there, that we do get to counter attack in Europe, and we don't get to do that in Scotland, and that's again where I find it frustrating, but also in a lot of ways, like that's almost like not the last building block when you're doing a rebuild. All of the managers who we've had in the last decade have struggled with this. How do you play through the low block? Because we don't live in a time where we have Laudrups and Gascoignes to try and unpick 10 players sitting in front of the ball. So what you're trying to do is you're almost trying to kind of unpick the lock with like team systems and little layoffs and playing through. And with the best will in the world, like it's Scotland, and we don't get those players. We either get players who are like youth players getting developed, like in Ciala, or try and polish up like a diamond in the rough, like Higaman, or someone like Sherney who's got good bits to his game and deficits in his game. So I think breaking that low block down is like almost like the most difficult thing in a lot of ways, because it's easy to just sit in and make life difficult. I do wonder, I don't know the answer to this. I'd love to ask Clement, because like people have talked about the difference between last season when he had us really pushing for the title, and then this season where it's not really looked even remotely likely, and why last season he was more adaptable than this season. And I wonder, I don't know the answer to this, I wonder if last season it was like, right, I've come in to firefight, try and stay competitive, and then next season's the rebuild. So last season he was being pragmatic. This season, he's almost maybe agreed with Coppin or the board that he's going to build a system. And even when it's not working, like you said, Doug, with the number 10, where it's not working and the player doesn't seem right for it, he's being stubborn and he's sticking to the system he wants to eventually have. Because what he's hoping is he gets 3 transfer windows, unlikely now, I would admit, but he gets a transfer window and it's not working that well. Then he gets a second transfer window and it's falling into place. And by the time he goes to the third transfer window, we've been playing this system for a year, and it's maybe just slotting a few hopefully round pegs into round holes. So I wonder, I'm not defending, I'm not saying that this is right that he's done that, but I do wonder, because there is a difference between last season when we were competitive and this season where he's been very pragmatic. And I do wonder, because like you say, the number 10 is problematic. He's tried a few different options there. Lawrence looked okay for part of the season, Barami's showing up in flashes, but I do wonder if that's the thinking. The thinking is he is going to stick with this system come hell or high water, in the hope that over the transfer windows he gets to gradually assemble the team. I'd be pretty surprised if that's going to happen now, because like you'd have to presume that the 49ers group have got some sort of modern coach in mind that they're going to try and slot in, who's like a little bit like what Leeds did with Jesse Marsh when they kind of took over there. So I wonder, like I say, I'd love to ask him the question, but yeah, even as a Clement apologist, it's difficult to make much of a case on a day like today.
Absolutely, and I think there's a point there as well about obviously talking about, and I think this has probably been true, discussions that have happened in the background about what the goals are. The CEO talked in his interview about obviously Rangers sticking to a plan, and that's why Clement hadn't kind of gone already. That they had this plan, they're sticking to it. I think one thing that fans have been concerned about, and I'm wondering about your thoughts on this, is whether Clement is too focused on this, on his plan, whatever that plan may be, whether it's about a rebuild over a couple of years and he's thinking about it in those terms, and he's not focusing on the fact that Rangers fans don't care about your plan over however many years. Rangers fans don't care if you are in your head have another 2 windows to get it just the way you want it, that you need to deliver the best that you can today, from today, with whatever tools you're given, whether they're enough or not. And as unfair and irrational and erratic and everything else as that is, that he just doesn't seem, I think, in a lot of people's eyes, to balance that fact. And and that they still think again that he could be doing better, even if he is going through all that.
I mean, I do take the point there. Just to answer a couple of the kind of the comments there to the Charles, who's suggesting I stay off the weed. I don't smoke weed, but I do like a nice single malt, and I haven't had one of those. This is very much water, but that will be changing after we've done this. And James saying, "Is Clement paying me? It's unacceptable." I'll be upfront. It's totally acceptable if Clement wants to pay me to say nice things about him. I'm quite happy to do that. I mean, I take your point on him being like overly pragmatic, but I wonder if he's always got to a point where he knows he's lost the fans. He knows that the league's gone, and he's almost like doubling down, because it's not like I'm not looking at that squad and thinking some other manager is going to turn us into watertight at the back and some fluid attacking machine that's going to dominate Scottish football. I think he could probably play around with it a bit more, and I wonder if he's just got to a stage where it's like, well, the reason I'm doing this is because we agreed we're going to build towards like future over maybe 3 windows, and he's just went, that's what I'm sticking to, because he realizes he's probably going to lose his job now. So in his mind, if he's sticking to the principle of trying to rebuild the team, either A, it might come good, or B, for future employers, he's got a consistent narrative, and he's showing, look, even when it was unpopular, I stuck to the plan, and given another 2 windows, I would have got there. So in his mind, maybe A, he believes it, and B, it might be a better narrative for him as a manager going forward. I just don't think with the squad that he's been given, might we be 5 or 6 points better off? Maybe not. But I do wonder, because like that is, and I don't know the answer to that, but last season he was pragmatic. But last season, was before we cut a lot of players and your Lundstroms and the like. And before anyone jumps on it, I don't think we're winning the league with Lundstrom, but I think Lundstrom plus an upgrade on Lundstrom would have been a good idea. Someone who does what he does, only better, and can turn in less than half the pitch. That would have been nice, but he wasn't given that. So again, not defending Clement, but I'm looking at it and going, it's that, right? What would I do that would make things that much better? And there's so many weaknesses in that squad, like centre of defence, for example. Sherney is like a third of Sima. He can do a third of what Sima does. He's got the shimmy and the cut in and some of the goals, but he doesn't have the physicality, and he can't drive past people, and he doesn't have that side to his game. So I do think we downgraded a lot in the summer, and I think Clement. A lot of people find what he's doing arrogant. I don't find it arrogant. I think stubborn, maybe, or principled. You've got your 3 picks. You can either find them arrogant, stubborn, or principled. I've been in the sort of, he's probably sticking to his principles. I can see why people might find that he's been a bit stubborn. Personally, I don't find him arrogant. I think you have to be thick-skinned to be a Rangers manager. I found, sometimes Gio a wee bit wishy-washy with the press. I found Beale just like a total chancer and contradicting himself. So I don't actually mind Clement coming out and standing his ground. I know that might not be popular, but that's my take.
I think for a lot of fans, you say there maybe we'd be 3-5 points slightly different. I think for a lot of fans, so while that's not a lot, it is the difference to still being in the title race and being just totally out of it. And I think for a lot that is a concern. It's interesting. I was looking up. It's interesting. You're talking about Sima and Cherney there. Sima, his season he had with us, he got 16 goals and 2 assists. And Cherney's currently sitting with 14 goals and 7 assists. So I think there's an argument there as to while they've got different qualities. Because I'm a big advocate of output and final output, and I think that's where we've failed a lot in recruitment. We've let go of a lot of players that got output in favour of players that are up and down. Because I genuinely don't think our defence has been our biggest issue for a long time. It's good enough of a defence to win a league in terms of 11 of the 12, or sorry, 10 of the 11 of the opponents that we'll face. our issue has been that we don't score enough goals. We're not clinical enough, which allows us, when we have games like today, and Clement loves to talk about his stats and how many shots we've had. You can have 100 shots, but if none of them are goals, then they're ultimately irrelevant if the other team gets their 1-1, which I think is a big problem. But about the time we're getting on about, we don't really talk about the game, but I don't really think that's a big problem given how it went. But the one thing I do want to touch on before we go was VAR today. VAR, I thought, was a bit of a mixed bag in today's match. It rightfully changed Egerman's red to a yellow, I feel. It rightfully, as unfortunate as it was, changed the decision of a foul to St Mirren having a goal. I do think, for me, NCL has tripped over himself, unfortunately. But it took its time to make both of those decisions, which were ultimately one thing it was looking at. And there was a particular point, there was a tackle on Hadji right in front of sort of Clement, where he gets absolutely cleaned out, and there wasn't a hint of even a thought of a card or a foul or anything. Never mind a VAR looking at it. But then later on in the match, there was a point where there was seemingly a double potential handball, which would have given us a penalty. St Mirren being the leaders in the league for penalties thus far. And it took about 30 seconds, if that, to look at that. And again, it just feels like there's a little bit of inconsistency there. What was your thoughts on VAR in the game?
I mean, I can talk about VAR. I really want to talk about Kevin Clancy, but VAR, yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm going to have to talk about Clancy, because VAR in the first one, when he gets the red card out for Egerman, for years, I have always taken the attitude that the referees in Scotland are just like dog meat. They're just not very good. Some of them are also influenced by the media and don't want their windows panned in and all this sort of stuff. So that comes into play. Kevin Clancy, I just see things that I cannot explain any rational way. Decisions that, and when Egerman went in today, he's so quick with the red card. Every refereeing course and instruction manual tells you, take a second, take a breath, have a think about what you've seen. You think it's a red card? Okay, take a couple of beats and see, do you still think it's a red card? Then get the card out to avoid, things heating up. You see this with Clancy all the time. He had the red card out like exactly the same way when Alfie was done for simulation. Now, whether Alfie dived or not, Clancy was a long way away when that happened, and he's like a gunslinger in the Wild West when it comes to us. Similar, when VAR came in the first season and Ryan Kent went into the box. I'm trying to remember who we were playing. It could have been St Mirren, but he was heading into the box, cleaned out. It's a penalty. Not in Clancy land, it isn't. In Clancy land, it's a yellow card to Ryan Kent for simulation. Fortunately, VAR was able to have a look and go, rescind the yellow and give a penalty, which he did. But I saw that Clancy was refereeing today, and it actually takes some of the air out your tyres, because you're going, right, the decisions are going to be iffy, and he's going to do that thing where he stands over the ball to break up play like an opposition player. And the fact that, again, he's jumped in on Egerman. So I think Clancy's a smart guy, and I wonder if what's going on here is, if you give a decision like that and you give a red card, even if it's not a red card, he knows it might stand because it needs to be a clear and obvious error. So he can get the red card out. And if it's iffy, it stands. And if it doesn't, he goes, oh, well, that's VAR doing its job. I've just seen things with Kevin Clancy that I've never seen with another referee. I've seen him with us playing against Celtic, where one of our players got clotheslined. He runs up with the yellow card out. He's about to give the yellow card, sees it's someone he's already booked, and puts it back in his pocket. That game with Aberdeen a couple of seasons ago, where Brunaldo was captain in the Dons, and I've never seen a game like it, where like every time someone went near Scott Brown, he would throw himself over and Clancy would just give the foul. And I was watching it thinking, this is like, if this was your mates playing, you'd be telling him the guy to get off the pitch and stop favouring one side. And I remember after that Aberdeen game, seeing a stat that just blew my mind, which it was, I might not get this exactly on, but I'm in the ballpark, where it's like we had Aberdeen had made 22 tackles and Clancy had given 7 fouls against Aberdeen. We had made 21 tackles and he'd given 23 fouls against Rangers. And I'm sorry, that's impossible for a referee who's refereeing to the rules of the game. So when I saw that today, I was worried that although to me it looked like a yellow, not a red, I was worried that the VAR team were going to go, not a clear and obvious error, and it was going to stand. But Kevin Clancy, I just, I don't know if anyone else thinks that he's just not very good at his job, but I've kind of gone past that, to be honest. The Insiala trip, I know what you mean. I kind of saw it from one angle where it looked like he must have clipped his heels. Why else would he go down? I did see it from another angle where I kind of agree with you, Doug. It looked like maybe he's tripped himself. What I don't love about the coverage is, like, I couldn't definitively say one way or another, and they should be able to zoom in, give you like an angle where you go, all right, yeah, where he's gone down there, it's definitely not him. So I think you're probably right. It maybe looks like he tripped himself, but I'm not 100% on that one. But it was interesting to see that they take all the time in the world to see if they can give a goal against Rangers, and then there's 2 handballs to be checked in like 30 seconds, and suddenly we go from like third world sort of VAR to world class VAR officiating in the space of about like 10 minutes. And I think a lot of us are getting fed up with that, because it looks like from the outside what they're doing is, if Rangers have a decision that's going to go their way, they look at the first phase and they look at the second phase and the third phase, and they really fine-tooth comb it. And if it's us, it's like, well, not clear and obvious, on we go. So yeah, and like I say, Kevin Clancy, I don't know if anyone else just thinks he's bad, but I'm way past that.
And I should say, for those in the comments, we're not. I didn't want to discuss VAR as a potential excuse. It certainly isn't that. Merely just the ongoing discussion on the merits or lack thereof of VAR in Scottish football. I am a proponent that the VAR itself is fine. It's those who are behind the screens that are potentially the problem. But that's definitely is nowhere near the issues with our match today. It was entirely down to the manager and the players, and a lot of the comments that you guys have made. Which on that point, I think I'll bring things to a close now. I'll thank all the guys in the comments for everything you've contributed today. Obviously, a real sore one, a lot of strong feelings going on, and a lot of great chat in the comments there. So thank you for participating, everybody. If you are watching, you've enjoyed the chat today, or it's you've enjoyed it, it's enraged you, either which way. If you're not subscribed, please click on the subscribe button and the wee bell beside it. That'll tell you when we have more stuff that can either delight or enrage you in equal measure. We've got more stuff coming in the week for the matches. Obviously, we've got midweek games coming again, Kilmarnock midweek, and obviously the European ties to come. And we'll have coverage on all of that post and pre-game, as well as the stuff in between. It remains for me to say thank you to Billy for coming on, and indeed for your debut today. How did you find it?
It's fun because you get to vent and talk about Rangers, which is what I do after a game anyway. It's funny, I see Charles is going, podcast should be sacking podcast tonight. Don't know if he means Clement, us or me, but any one of those three could be applicable.
If you're in the media, you're there to cause controversy, so you're doing something right if people are asking for you to be sacked already. I think you've done great though, Billy. It was great to have you on. Spoken really well, so thanks for that. We'll look forward to having you on again. Just remains for me, guys, to say thanks for watching, and do remember that every night is a Rangers Journal night. Goodbye.